Because of the way the universe is created, we each of us live in two worlds at the same time. We have to live in the outer life of our own bodies and the inner life of our own souls.
Hello and welcome to Living the Inner Life. I'm your host, Chris Sheridan, and I want you to join with me on a journey and a discussion on consciousness, our beliefs, our notions, our thoughts, our feelings, everything that goes on in our interior experience, our inner life, and how that affects the way we interpret and respond to all the things that go on in our outer world. Now, it's been said that we are our own worst enemy, or that we can be. And that's probably true. Nobody knows us quite as well as we do. Nobody knows how to mess things up for ourselves the way we do. And that's often been called self-sabotage. Oh, this person just self-destructs. They self-sabotage. And it sure seems that way a lot of the times. Maybe you've had an experience with that, where you've gotten in your own way, or you've tanked a project, you've pulled the plug on something before it really had a chance to come to fruition. Okay? We can do that. We can make things either more difficult, or we can just quit things if it gets too hot, or it gets too frustrating, or it just all seems like way too much for us to deal with. Okay? But I'm wondering if self-sabotage is really the right way to describe that. It is a way. Okay? And the sabotage is usually when you throw something into the works. You frustrate a piece of machinery or otherwise derail a project. And we do that to ourselves. But when you're trying to sabotage something outside of you, okay, let's just use a piece of machinery at work. And actually, to clear this up, yes, Sabu is the name of the shoe. And there is a story that apparently is not true, that the word sabotage came from the workers at a shoe factory or some other factory, I guess, throwing their shoes into the grain mill or whatever it was, and that blew up the machine, and they couldn't work, and it hurt the company or whatever they had a grievance against. Okay, but apparently that's not really true, but in a way it really doesn't matter, because whether you're throwing a shoe in the works or you're throwing the towel in, that's a boxing term, is basically quitting, that you are self-sabotaging. But what's behind it? Okay, if you're going to sabotage something else, it's because you disagree with it, you disagree with the people, the policies, okay, whatever's going on outside of you with somebody else or something else, some other entity that you want to sabotage, you want to derail, you want to make sure that whatever plan they're working on doesn't work out. But what does that mean when we do it to ourselves? Okay, what are we rebelling against? What are we fighting against? Okay, a lot of times what we sabotage is something good. Okay, if it's something outside of us, we perceive it as something bad, something unfavorable, something we don't want, which is why we want to derail it. Okay, because this thing is harmful to ourselves or to the environment, or any other reason we can find that we don't like something or someone and we want to throw a wrench in and derail their project. Okay, so it's a negative thing that we don't want to work out. We want to sabotage it. But what about ourselves? Is it the negative thing that we sabotage, self-sabotage? That really wouldn't be considered sabotage. If you're trying to get rid of some negative aspect of yourself or a habit, well, that's good, right? If it's something you don't want and you have it, say if it's a bad eating habit, you eat after midnight and generally it's not good things. You're not cooking up a, boiled kale or something at 1:30 in the morning, usually grabbing a bag of chips and, some ice cream or a donut or something. Okay, not good for you. Okay, people stress eat. I do it sometimes. It happens. And it can throw your sleep and your digestion and all kinds of things off. So if late night eating is this negative thing that you don't want to continue and you want to sabotage it, self-sabotage. I don't think that wouldn't be the term you would use. That would be self-improvement. Okay? It would be getting rid of an old negative habit and replacing it with a better, newer habit. Okay? Seems like most of the time, at least that I'm aware of, and please, give me some feedback and let me know what's happening in your life, how you've experienced self-sabotage. Seems like most of the time what we sabotage is something good. Okay? It's a plan that we're working on. If it's a workout plan and we want to have a schedule where we're either working out at home or we're going to the gym so many days a week, and then you start finding ways, certain excuses to get out of it. Well, I don't feel quite right today, or well, I don't have a sitter. I mean, there may be practical reasons why you can't, but if you develop this pattern of trying to get out of it, get out of this thing that you wanted to do, this thing that is there to improve your life, this self-improvement. Okay? If you start sabotaging that means you're really going against a good thing. Okay? If you're trying to upset or disrupt a negative thing, you're actually improving. But if you're working on improving yourself and then you derail it, that's something else, very opposite than with an outside element or project that you want to sabotage. Okay, so what's behind that? Okay, if self-sabotage, go with me on this, this is kind of the track that I'm taking, is that generally we only sabotage the good things that we are trying to do, that we are trying to accomplish. Okay? Change can be hard, especially, ironically, positive change. Okay? A lot of times it's easier to get rid of something than it is to bring in something new, to get rid of a bad habit. And it's harder sometimes to bring in this new thing, this new quality, this new way of life. And what I think is behind so-called self-sabotage is playing small. Okay, we can be comfortable in our smallness. All right? And if we become bigger than this limited vision that we have, it upsets our self-concept. Then it's something to live up to. If you advance yourself, say in education, and you get an advanced degree, well then you really now have to get a job and hopefully something in the field that you studied, and you have to pay off your loans, and you have to live up to this, master's degree or a PhD or whatever you have. Okay, and that can be a responsibility that you may or may not feel you can rise to. Okay, and this can be deserving. You can feel like you don't deserve this good thing. You don't deserve to have this changed body image, okay, or this improved condition in your life, in your financial health. A lot of people sabotage their success plan because they somehow still feel connected, still feel identified with this smaller, more broke, I guess, less successful self-image. Okay? If you have a bunch of friends that you hang out with and they're all just getting by in life, and then all of a sudden you get more successful and you have more money and you're able to do more things than your friends, they may, great, must be nice. I guess you get to do that. I guess we can't come with you. We can't afford that ticket. And you can actually have some negative impact in your relationships if you improve yourself, if you get out of this, misery loves company. Okay. And if you start being happy, I've seen this in sobriety. If you hang around a bunch of drunk friends, and I used to do that quite a bit. When I stopped drinking, I stopped going to some of those places, actually most of them, And I stopped seeing a lot of those friends, at least in the evening. I would maybe visit during the day, but I wasn't going to go over and hang out with my drinking buddies at midnight and not drink. I couldn't go. I couldn't put myself in that position. And sometimes with other people, if you improve outside of the group or the family or whatever this clan you're hanging around with, your tribe, if you stand out, if you rise up, it does two things. One, they get kind of jealous, perhaps, or envious of what you're doing, and you're almost betraying this contract with this group, so they can, throw rocks at you that way. And also, I think what happens, it calls other people out. Like if you achieve sobriety, you go into rehab and you go to meetings and you achieve sobriety, well, then it kind of makes your group seem like, oh, well, I guess we're just a bunch of drunks, or I guess you don't do good for us to hang out with us anymore, or something like that. It calls out their behavior if you've improved a condition or behavior they were used to having with this group. Okay? So the pressure from other people, from getting out of the group or clan or whatever connection that you have with other people, if you go to another level, it's going to call you out and it calls them out, and it can be uncomfortable for everybody. And that can be uncomfortable enough that you start to self-sabotage. But what is it you're doing? That's the result. That's the effect that you are self-sabotaging. But really what you're doing is self-preservation. You are maintaining a status quo. By derailing your improvement plan, you are bringing yourself back to where you started, back with this group of people, or just back with this smaller image that you have of yourself, a very limited viewpoint on who you think you are, what you think you're capable of, and also what maybe you deserve. That's another thing. I mentioned it before, but deserving. We sometimes want, yearn, hope, pray for this good thing, but when it comes, we can feel guilty or unworthy, especially if somebody else isn't getting this thing. A lot of it has to do with other people, but it can really just be an internal thing as well, that it's not deserved or that it's not earned, or somehow if you get more, other people will have less. This problem really comes up with people that are very empathetic, very compassionate, really think of other people. You don't want to upset the apple cart. Because not only does that upset the apple cart, it upsets you, because then you're not welcome in this group anymore, or at least there's some degree of uncomfortable air about it. All right. So to derail yourself when you're trying to improve, this self-sabotage is really self-preservation. Okay. You're really trying to protect yourself. It's a defense mechanism. We can get comfortable in a certain way because we know that way. We've experienced it a long time. If you've been struggling with money for a long time, you know that. You know that path. You know how to get by. You know how to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. And maybe there's some virtue that you feel in being a struggling artist or blogger or whatever it is you do. And these other people that are just making a bunch of money, or they're born into money, they have it easy, and you have more virtue and you're more legit because you're struggling. You can get so identified with that lower station. Okay, and doesn't mean there's anything wrong with being in limited financial or any other condition. But if it's not the vision that somehow deep inside yourself, you want this other thing, or you wouldn't set out to do it, there would be nothing to sabotage. Okay, you have to have this plan of action. You have to be trying to accomplish something before you can pull the plug on it. All right, so that means you want to go this route. It means that you want to improve yourself and your condition in some way. but it gets uncomfortable. It seems all too much. It can be frustrating in that it's taking a long time, or you question whether or not you're going to be able to go through with this, the long haul, endure the day in, day out aspect of developing yourself. Or even when you get to that point, well, then what will become of me? If I lose all this weight and I'm skinny now, well, then I've always identified as being a different weight. Not me personally, but it could be that. Well, I did that with drinking. When I finally gave up drinking and other things, I'd been partying for a long, long time, and I enjoyed it. I didn't really have anything too troubling or bad happen to me where I got arrested or, I got in a big car wreck or something like that. Fortunately, I guess luckily, I was able to avoid all that. I had other issues going on. I didn't feel good about myself. Okay. And also it got to the point to where no matter how much I drank, it wasn't solving anything. Okay. They call it the medicine stopped working. All right. It wasn't helping me. It wasn't taking away the pain. It wasn't helping me get to sleep. It was just giving me a headache. And I finally decided and went through the steps to achieve sobriety and the every day for a long time, and whatever it takes, however often you have to maintain that condition. But I couldn't go back. Okay. And maybe I missed the cold beer on a hot day after you finish mowing the lawn or something like that. Drinking or really anything can be connected with something else. Okay. And either you can't do that something else because it'll bring up this urge to drink, or that it was just part of the fun or part of the connection with other people. Hey, it's Friday night. I'm going to go down to the club and see the guys. I'm going to hang out and knock a few beers back and shoot some pool or something like that. That can be part of your social activity. It can really wreck your life, or at least the drinking part of your life and whatever's associated with that when you stop drinking. Okay. And that can be hard to give up. All right. Especially again, if you've been doing something for a long time, you can identify, you can relate yourself, you can become so connected with this image of yourself that it makes it very hard to change. And when does this sabotage usually happen? For me, in my experience, it doesn't really happen right away. If you're setting off on a new goal to do something, like I will use this podcast as an example. This isn't really it's a new podcast, but it's not a new idea. I've been kicking this thing around for a long, long time. I have done tests. I have written outlines. I have worked on logos and branding and all this stuff, and not to mention the 30 plus years of work and study and degrees I've gotten in the field of psychology and archetypal depth psychology and philosophy, and having this desire to do it. I was on another podcast. I was a co-host. It wasn't mine, but I was, somebody there all the time. I did over 100 podcasts with that, but it still wasn't my podcast. It wasn't the one that I'm doing where I'm speaking freely about whatever it is I want to talk about at any given time. Okay. And so I got close many times. I did so many tests. I got the account with iTunes or wherever you host the, Anchor FM is where I host this podcast. And I had that for almost 2 years, I think over 2 years, before this last month or so that I've actually been putting podcasts out regularly, putting them up there. Okay. So it didn't happen early on. It happened actually when I was fairly close to the finish line. Finish line in this case being that I'm recording and releasing podcasts on a regular basis of my own podcast show, of which I am the host, Living the Inner Life. All right. I got so close. Actually, the last little bit when I finally got it in me to do this thing and stop this self-sabotage or self-preservation, really what it is. I was playing small. I was afraid to put myself out there. I guess. Well, what if it sucks? What if nobody listens? I don't know. I'm getting some hits now. I guess I have to learn how to promote this podcast. Tell your friends. Please subscribe and rate and do all the things I guess you're supposed to do. I guess I could pitch myself a little bit better. But I'm doing this, okay? And it's not easy. This took a long time for me to get to this point. And I'm not exactly sure what happened. Maybe it was just critical mass. Maybe I finally just said, okay, enough is enough. I'm not going to test anymore. I'm not going to look online for different microphones and camera equipment and, all this stuff. You can get lost in that, and you can do that forever and still not make a decision, still not move forward, still not do the thing. So a lot of times this sabotage, this derailment happens when you're getting closer to the goal. Actually, maybe when you can see the goal, then it becomes real. And then it's like, oh my God, I got to do this. Because otherwise you can sit back and you can armchair quarterback and be the critic, behind the keyboard. And you can, well, if I was in charge, I'd do this. And now you can complain about other people and why they're not doing that. And geez, if I had my own podcast, I'd be doing this and this and that. And it's like, well, get your own podcast. And I did. And it became real, and I go, yikes. Okay, let's just stop this. You get that nervous feeling, that anxiety, because you're venturing off into something new. Okay, that's where this sabotage, this derailing your plan comes in, because you're getting out of an old way of being. You're getting away from these bad habits. You're bringing in, you're developing, you're elevating yourself to this new position. Okay? And it can be scary because it's not what you're used to. And there's a lot of unknowns. And you can fail if you're venturing out to do something. All right? And then you're a failure, or you can feel that way. All right? But is it more of a failure to do a thing and have it not work out, or to fail to really do the thing in the first place? I mean, actually do it. You can test, you can draft, you can write treatments, you can do all kinds of preparation work to get ready to do the thing that you eventually want to do. Okay, that's another way to sabotage, is just delay. You can run the clock out on something and say, oh, well, look at the time. Guess I don't have time to do that today. And you've successfully self-sabotaged. So again, I don't really think sabotage in the general sense that you normally would sabotage something negative that's happening out there that you want to stop. Okay? A lot of times when it happens with ourselves, we sabotage the thing that we want to start, the good thing that we want to bring in, the improvement we want to make with ourselves and in the world, because we have a smaller vision of ourselves that doesn't allow for this new, this better quality. Okay? So that's the first thing you can do. Make sure your vision for yourself includes this goal that you want to accomplish. Again, you wouldn't set out to do it, okay, if you didn't want to do it in the first place. You would have nothing to derail, nothing to sabotage. So think of that, okay? Why did you start it in the first place? Not why did you sabotage? Why did you set out to do this? Why is this important? Okay? And how can you improve and enlarge this vision of yourself that includes this new thing, even if it's unknown, even if it's scary? Okay? Sometimes what's scarier is just not doing anything. All right? So move forward, enlarging the vision of yourself, and do this thing and try to see it through without derailing it, because you don't know. You don't know when you accomplish this goal or you achieve this improvement in your life. If you haven't been there, you don't know. So give it a shot. And then if you don't like it, after having accomplished it, well, then maybe you can let it slide or go away or pick up something else, okay? So don't preserve something small. Don't preserve and maintain this small vision, this small version of yourself. You're bigger than that. You have more to do. You have more to experience. And by extension, more to offer other people by becoming more yourself. Okay? So thank you for being with me today and listening to what I have to say here on Living the Inner Life.